And it's an out.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
it's final fusion. I know, I know.
Yes, sir. It's kitty.
Good evening. All right. Anyone?
Perfect, thank you. I do have a few updates for Dr. Johnson, superintendent update. One, just a reminder that the board will have its annual reorganization meeting in July. That's the time that we look at any different changes or meeting schedules. I know we've already approved that, but we'll look at that one more time just to make sure that we are ready. Secondly, maybe a couple months ago, we talked a little bit about House Bill 2513 and how that might impact us. You'll see on our agenda today that we have an MOU with HCC. Really what we have just been able to come to is we are going to keep everything the same that it has been for the past few years. And that just gives us a little bit of time to really understand what the bill is saying and how it impacts us. We've worked with financials as well as HCC and all feel like that's the best thing that we should be doing to move forward. So when you see that on the consent agenda, again, that hasn't changed from previous years with HCC. And then we'll use this year to really figure out what impact it will have and the changes that will come in the future. Just a reminder, we have active shooter training happening at HMS 8. We do this every year, but it's just a reminder that there'll be alarms when you see multiple vehicles out there. And then, of course, we close down our buildings just to make sure that everybody is aware of what's happening. We have negotiations tomorrow afternoon, just a reminder that that is an open meeting and all are welcome to join. It's here at the Ad Center at 1 o'clock. That will be our second meeting. And we hope that our teachers and our staff are coming to be a part of that piece. And then summer meals have started. We're serving at the library, the fairgrounds, and HMS 7. So come and grab a meal if you haven't. I know that we have a lot of staff working to make sure that that is a smooth process and a timely one when our families arrive to be fed. So we appreciate that work of the staff. But again, that's happening at the library, fairgrounds, and HMS 7. And then I saw you guys got your binders already. Just a reminder that we asked Ryan to put together a committee to look at the trimester versus semester scheduling. Today, he's going to kind of provide you with an overview of the committee. Just a reminder, today is about asking any questions, maybe requesting additional information if needed. A final decision on changing or not changing the high school schedule will not be made until September. So this just gives us an opportunity to hear some information. And then Dr. Johnson will continue to work with the board as we move towards that September decision. So we have a lot happening, a lot of really good things, getting our principals checked out and really getting into the opportunity to finish up some professional development of teachers and plan for the 26-27 year. So.
They have any questions? Move on to item 3B, which is superintendent assigned board committee reports. That's what it's hard for me to say. I did it. I made it. Does anybody have anything to report? Yes.
Well, I have one. Hutch Early Ed Center, their board had their strategic planning retreat last Tuesday. So I was there with other people from the board, community members, retired teachers, for educators, current educators. It was a group of about 10. We worked on their focus areas. We got it down to about 5. And it was really wonderful. It was, sometimes strategic planning, people can come from very different viewpoints and it takes a while to get on the same page. Everyone was really on the same page about what they want for their strategic plan. And I just want to remind everybody that the Early Ed Center is free. They have providers who provide education for children and families from birth to age 5. All of it's free. They have occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists there. It's just a really wonderful place for Hutchinson, and obviously was very partners with them. And one of the main things that they discussed, which I didn't realize was such a huge factor, was they want to serve lunches at Early Ed Center. They want to be able to serve lunches. Right now they have half days, but they want to move to like a full day scenario where the kids can have lunch, which would make a big difference for working families, to not have to worry about getting lunch. So anyways, maybe that's something they can work towards next year, but it's great.
Yes.
Do they offer all day care now?
No, it's only half.
Okay,
Morning or
so
noon.
it would continue to be half, but half.
They can do, yeah, so you could stay
Yeah.
late if you were a morning, or you could come early if you were an afternoon. Or they could move to have full day care, so they're hoping to
Get to
Yeah.
Okay.
that's a goal.
And then the new, historic center, I think it's open June 1, right?
Oh, I should have said that.
Yeah.
It's been in our first week,
Yeah.
at the new childcare center.
Yep.
Yes, and it is so nice if you have not driven by to see all of the children outside playing, but we've worked really hard for a really long time. And so now to see staff and students there, is definitely a celebration. Thank you, Cheryl.
Any other reports?
I'll say that we had like a little curriculum update before this meeting. I won't steal your thunder, Dr. Johnson, when it comes to the specifics of the data. But I guess in summary, we can say that the buildings are now working with the strategic plan and we're seeing results. And that's the best thing that I could see on there was these numbers, they're declining where they need to decline and they're increasing where they need to increase. Are we where we need to be? No, but the steps are being made. And that is something that I'm really proud of for the district.
Nothing else, we'll move to item 4A. Mr. A.B. Scott, he's prepared.
Yeah.
One more. Oh,
Whoa.
Okay, I appreciate you guys having me in again to talk about our work on the scheduling committee. When we left, I was kind of giving you some, expectations, some kind of the processes, the procedures, things we were looking at. So I want to kind of just update you. We met 2 times. We met, the big group did. It was made up of, as you can see up here, a collection of different staff members from different areas and about 15 members. And so we met on April 13th. And I told you guys this was going to be a very structured situation where it's not just talk, look at a binder, complain. It was a very structured process, which you'll see as I get into the materials. But just reviewing, this was the makeup of the committee. And then these were the processes. We met, which we did. We met twice, and then I met with a smaller group of some instructional coaches, some administrators to look at the larger group's information. Because they were looking at a lot of data, they were writing a lot of notes, they were making a lot of comments. And so we took all of that, and then I brought it to my smaller group, and we tried to put it into common themes and try to find something that was a little more digestible. So the small group wasn't another group, it was just refining material and making it something that was readable. So part of this binder that you have is really where the research, some of it, not all of it, began and ended. And then through that, they were identifying the areas that you guys said, and we said we promised that we would look at, which was student rigor, our instructional minutes, credits, what does that look like, graduation requirements, GPAs, of course, assessment scores, student experience, what is discipline? Would that go up, down? What, attendance, does it help attendance? What's the failure rate look like? Programs and pathways, what I found really, yes, AP, we don't do that, but IB, the concurrent courses. But I'll tell you what really was kind of interesting was trying to find something that fit the CTA HCC model. And I'm going to circle back to that in the end here at the end before I take questions, because that's impactful in a few ways. And then the impact on electives, and of course the impact on the 4 classes. And then finally, staffing. Here's one thing you need to know as you look through here: is this going to be more teachers? Is it going to be less teachers? We're saving bottom line there. We looked at these schedules that the committee has recommended. And we do not need any more or any less staff than what we have right now. That was one of the strong considerations. We didn't want to have a reduction in force, and we didn't want to have to go out and hire about 10 other teachers to make it happen. So that part is pretty good. I want to go back here and just remind, this isn't me making a recommendation. It isn't, it's just giving you information where the committee's at. And then if you can always reach out to me, but I think Dawn has a process for moving the board forward. So this was kind of how we did it. And I don't want to drop this stuff every 5 minutes, but if you look in through your packet of information, you will see a handout that came out that says Hutchinson High School Schedule Committee. And you'll see it says purpose, guiding question, areas for exploration and outcome.
I think there's a slide missing.
No, I think they just have the packet on this.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Now I'm talking through here.
Okay.
But does everybody have this sheet?
Yes.
I walk up here because I'm a teacher. And I think getting closer means clarity. So this was how structured it was, is what I'm trying to bring to light. And so these were the areas that we're exploring. We were looking at what's scheduling structure best for 308 student achievement and post-secondary success. And so then as you turn the page, you'll see committee discussion protocol, part 1. So we had them get out that binder. You may be asking, Ryan, where did you get all that stuff in the binder? When I met with you guys the first time, I said, this has been asked of me since I became a principal 7 years ago, like, hey, this talk of semester, trimester. And so I just started collecting things. I collected things from old data from Mr. Ream, the old principal, some data he had before we switched. I looked at current data. Of course, Emporia was a big school that we kind of looked at because it compares to us. And it was the last school that went semester, trimester, then back to semester. So I reached out to them. I dug into the state website and looked at building reports of 6 different schools that are comparable to us, like Leavenworth and Pittsburgh and KC Turner. And I pulled up their building reports, which looked at their attendance rates, their state assessment scores in math and ELA, looked at their chronic absenteeism, to see how we compared with our current model and them doing some form of a semester. And we are doing pretty well. I mean, somebody would have to kind of walk you through what that looks like, but that information showed the current model actually is doing rather well when you look at those other comparable schools in the semester. I'm not trying to sell you on that. I'm just saying, when you look through there, you may find something different, but actually, and not every single area, but the group did kind of see that. So, and then I gave some examples of things, sample schedules that I worked out with the whole 8 o'clock start time to the 3:20 end time, which you guys could always decide if you want to do. I mean, whatever you want to do, I can adjust to that. And I'll adjust anything further you would want me to look at it. If there's a model in there, you're like, I really would like more information on that, I can get that to you. So the first thing they did was individually, they got into those binders. They were allowed to bring anything else that they wanted. And they just looked through there and they reflected on these areas that we promised that we were going to look at for a schedule, the rigor and the student experience. And they tried to answer that individually. We met for half days in the PLC over at Hutch High, and it took us probably a good hour and a half of just individual looking through the binder, and they weren't supposed to talk. They were just supposed to do their own work. And then we took a break. We came back and we put them in groups that we assigned them to. And that's what you'll see the names on the sheet of the people that were in each group. And you can see in the directions, we even gave, really, each person contributes before anyone else shares a second idea or thought. Basically, we had those norms, if you will, for how the group would participate before they started and being respectful. And so then what they did is under each one of those categories, each group member shared out what they had written. And then Some got done with that, some did not. And so the second, at the end of this meeting, they did get started on part 3, which is their group then had to take collaborative statements from each one of those areas, things that they thought were pros, things that they agreed on were cons. That's what that smaller group had to do. We had to take all those from each one of those groups and try to see what that looked like. Because there was a lot of notes and a lot of information. The one other thing that we had them look at is this sheet that says school schedules. And this came from one of our committee members. And he had actually emailed or called around to all these 5A, 6A schools, because he's a coach and he knew a lot of the people, and asked them what kind of model they were using. Was it, well, they're all using semester because it's only us and Council Grove using trimester. So kind of really, this is just a list of all the schools that we gave them and said, hey, so before we left at the end of day 1, we said, are there any of these models that you would like as a group or an individual, or would like us to research and bring back, make calls, visit, Google Meet these schools, get more information and bring back to the group? And so from there, we had about 7, I was about to say 6 or 7, I'm sorry. There were really, honestly, about 6 or 7 models that the group kind of wanted to look at. Well, 2 calls were made, and pretty quickly we decided that's probably not going to work at Hutch High for one reason or the other. So as the smaller group then met, we took what ended up being 5 different models that we thought were best for 308 Hutch High. And from there, and I didn't bring it because it's a lot, but then what we did is we broke down all the comments into some readable thing and sent it out to the group in an email and said, does everybody agree with these comments from each section? So we did that every time from the small group. We always sent it out to the larger group and said, does anybody have any additions, changes? Are you okay with what we've produced? So then with that, we brought in to the group, and this is in your binder, it says a sample packet. And it's got, now what you're going to find is that we took the last one off, which was a block every other day, 90-minute, because that wasn't, the group finally said, let's just take that one off. So we did start with 5 and we shaved it down to 4. So it says that, but so what you'll see, and this is not that informative if you're not a school counselor, but you'll have the schedules of the day, the periods. And then this kind of tells you what a freshman semester would look like with our current trimester schedule. That's our current one. Crystal said, make sure that we're clear. Right now, we're on a 5-period trimester schedule. That's what this is reflecting, what we are currently doing, this first page. This kind of shows you what a freshman schedule looks like. Below that is a sophomore, then a junior, then a senior. Again, it just kind of shows you where the classes plug in, stuff they have to take, where electives may fit in. And then you'll see the elective total at the bottom. That's where we get the 21 electives. Now, again, lots of variety here of individual students and what they may or may not take. It's just a standard schedule, okay? The group, though, had also with that all the pros and cons that were listed from the group to look at as well when they looked at this, to see what everybody said about our current schedule. So it wasn't just this outside sheet. Then we move on. And this one was kind of a new one. If you looked at the sheet that had all the schools, nobody really had this model. This was a kind of a Ryan Avey original that started as a 6-period trimester. And does it work? It does. And here in a little bit, when I show you the sheet, which you should have, you'll see each one of these compared in something we thought would be easy for you guys to read. It's got some pros and cons, just like all of them, but that's what this is. And then when you turn it over, you can see again, the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, where everything would fit. You can see they get a lot more electives in that trimester 6 period, they simply because they have another period, right? It does shorten the amount of time. Right now, we have a 77-minute average class period in 5. With that, it would go down to 63 minutes per class, still over an hour. And then the other model we looked at was one that's a very traditional model, is the 7 period. It says and over the top. There are more than and over uses it, but this is one that a lot of schools use. It's a 7 period semester. So this is the first one that we're looking at that's a semester schedule, which is more on quarters, right? That we're used to 9 weeks, 9 more weeks, get credit, and then move on to third quarter, fourth quarter, and 2 period semesters. So we looked at that. Again, the committee looked at the pros and cons of that and looked at how the schedule may look like for students.
I don't want to interrupt.
No, you're
Ryan,
good.
But Stacy, could you go back to the slide that lists out the priorities? And yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on what we had bulleted under each of these, so that I was thinking about those as we're looking.
Yes, absolutely. And so then we looked at a lot of these schedules on this like 13 or so we looked at. Some of them do some really modified, interesting things. You know what I mean? Like a 5 period block where, and some of them are like, well, we meet every day for this amount of time, and one day we meet with everybody. You know what I mean? It's just that there's quite a few hybrids. So with that, like Manhattan, we thought, gosh, that's a good one. And we kind of took a little bit that we liked from Manhattan's and put it into something that worked for Hutch. And then we looked up at some of the other ones like Dodge, and we looked and said, well, yeah, they're doing some things there that we might be able to look at. And I'm going to be completely honest. One of our members took this and really made it work and came back, and this was and I don't want to say it because I don't want to embarrass her, but she gets a lot of credit for coming up with this 5 period semester model. And I'll come back to that here in a second when we compare these 4. Okay. So that was the sheet. That's how the group went. So on the second day that we met on April 21st, we went through those 5 until we took off the block 90-minute every other day. We went down to those 4. They as a group went through it in their own small group, and then as a large group, we went through it and made some common thoughts again. The small group went back, took all those, and then I produced a survey for the staff to vote on. With the sheet that, and I'm sorry, I'm going to move this forward, Lord, just real quick on that. These were just the different schools around the state that we had asked for schedules. And some of them were hidden behind the icon there, so they're not all up. Then you come to this. You should have this sheet either in your binder. Yes?
Yeah.
So what I've just gone through before is, this is it. This is the current. These are just the periods, the timeline. The 6 period trimester, the 7 period semester, the 5 period semester. Now, one thing I want to talk about is that 5 period semester, we would call it doing it in quarters, where they would get a grade after, because of the length of time. I mean, you're talking 9 weeks, and right now we go 12 weeks, but you're talking 9 weeks at the same amount of time, but you're also doing it longer. So I guess my point would be, the nice thing about, well, I'll just come to it. I'll try to not confuse you. So this is what we took under each one of those areas. So there they are again. They're not bulleted, but you can at least see this is a list of both pros and cons. So the current trimester, and I will try not to go all through each one of these because you can read, but it does have 75-minute class. A lot of time for application. One of the problems that the board has asked is the gap, right? If I take 2 sections of English, I may not have English for 3rd try, and then again first try the next year have gone a long, long time without English. So that's one of the concerns with our current model. They do have 5 daily class options. The structure is familiar. It is hard for transfers in and out. It doesn't align with HCC and some of these other schools that we take in into CTA. Has the electives. Now, one thing I'll say about the 21 electives, now that we're doing C's, English C for 3 trimesters, which adds about, like I told you last time, you probably don't remember, but about 4,000 more instructional minutes if you do 3 trimesters in our current model of English. To just doing it twice. But if you have 9th and 10th doing C's, that does reduce the number of electives because they'll be taking another section of English, just making you aware. So 21 would actually be a little less in our current model. And then I apologize that it says 77-minute plan period, and at the top it says 75-minute. That should be 77-minute average here. And up here, sorry, I just got that. And then the 6th period trimester again, 63 minutes, a little less time. You would not have the gaps in there because they would have to run them back to back to back. There are a lot more electives, which you would have to then look at your 26 current electives. The board would have to approve probably more. You're going to have people leaving when they're sophomores. And the start time for our CTA classes, currently they come in a little earlier under our current model and they leave a little later. They would really have to make that adjustment because we've decreased the time. And like right now, those block classes out in the shop, not all of them, most of them meet 1st and 2nd period, right? 77 minutes, 77 minutes. Then 3rd period, they either have planned period or they do introductory classes for those. And we pay them to do that. And then 4th and 5th is their 2nd afternoon block with different kids from HCC or wherever. Our kids, their kids. If you have 6 periods shorter, it's going to have to be 3 and 3 with no plan. To meet the HCC requirement. It's not just our requirement, but if we're offering that shop class for the certification, there will be no introductory courses. So then you got to ask how many people will we get in there, you know what I mean, if they don't have the intro to it. And then what does that look like? But it would really run back to back the AM and PM classes on is what that means. And that's not all intro classes, primarily auto, body, automotive, and there's one more, but those 2 are the big ones there. Each one of these models now from here over, you will see requires a lot of PD and pacing adjustments. Because you may be asking yourself, well, how do I teach a class that was 77 minutes? And now all of a sudden, if you do the 7 period model, it's 54. What do we lose content? Do we, is it a speed race? Well, again, you would have to look at your mapping. You would have to really pick, which assignments do we need to cover? We all have some things we draw a little longer, sometimes we make it a little shorter. The good thing is, however you adjust it, the content we guarantee you will be covered, however we do that, but they will need time to adjust a 12-week class that they've been doing down to a 9 or to an 18 in some cases. And just the math is just now spent 3 days this summer trying to align it to our current model. Just FYI. So, and I'm just saying that's the kind of time that we talk about making sure that's right, so we get the content covered. Then the 7 period semester, 54-minute classes, 7 daily classes. It aligns. Now we're aligning with anything outside of Hutch High, right? With college and those schedules, and the electives, ironically, would be the same as what we have now, 21 credits, or electives. Shorter lab, shorter practice, a little more flexibility because you have more classes in a day to choose from. Or when you get stuck, you can move, you have more options to move kids around. You still get the intro courses back. And then you can see the workload, and we would well, I don't want to say that, but K8, we have PLCs, professional learning communities, at Hutch High because of our schedule and we have department time on in-service days. One thing about the 7-period days, we could fit time where departments could meet, like, say, 9th grade English teachers during the day, time for them to meet for professional learning. Because right now my departments get 4 times a year to meet during in-service days. It's hard to plan and, you know what I mean, and do those things. And then finally, the 5-period semester hybrid, we're back to the 70. It's very similar in length to what we currently have. All core would meet 3 quarters. So they would meet for 9, 9, and 9, so 27. What the counselors have assured me is you could do first, second, third, and just keep them in that so there's no gap. Now, there would be a gap fourth to first, or maybe even fourth, and they couldn't get them in. I mean, you could still have a gap in that regard with your fourth. But the nice thing is they believe if you're not in 1, 2, 3, you could be in 2, 3, 4, and at least get it all at the same time. And then you could also have maybe another quarter there because what do you do with the failures? That's the one nice thing about trimester right now is you have that whole other trimester to make up the failures for most anything. So this kind of gives us that option. Really, guys, to sum it up, there's a ton more electives just because, if you do quarters and you do 5, 5, 5, you have 20 periods for students, and that's going to add electives. And you can see that in that packet where those fall. The one thing about this, and again, I'm not trying to sell any of them, is I think what we were trying to do was take what we like about the trimester with the length of time and application time, put it into a semester model so we could start lining up and with more of those other things. The instructional time, though, is it too long? Is it too short? Those are things that would need to be addressed. So that's what we gained, and I did survey. We surveyed the staff, and I can get that to you if you ask. I did not bring that tonight. We surveyed parents, but not with this information, just the original. Because I don't know if I told you this, but we surveyed staff just on their thoughts on semester, trimester before, just cold, with no real information. And of course, it came out predominantly trimester because most people did that. Then we did this the second time with this sheet as they voted. They could look at what you're looking at and at least or ask their peers. And it shortened, it evened that out a little bit. However, the middle school vote is maybe a little bit different because they don't quite have the same things. And they already are teaching 7 or 8, so I wish I would have kept that survey completely separate. And I did not, but I want to give you that as well. The students did an informal one. I had a teacher go around here towards the end. And the reason it wasn't formal is because you have to have that 4-month permission. And we wouldn't have it to you by September. So we just did an informal. And again, kind of as I told you last time I met, the kids pick what they know.
Yeah.
That's what they know. And they're scared to change, just as we all would be, and then the parents, again, they got it with cold, just, unless they went to a semester. And they actually, pretty strong with trimesters. Most of them said they liked it. I think some of the concerns were scheduling, lack of scheduling options, maybe, and that semester might make it more, viable or more choices. So this is how I want to end this until I take questions, and I apologize if I went too long, but this is a very, very important decision. I don't envy you. You're not in it by yourselves, us, I don't envy this. However, I started this committee with this comment. Don't kill the cat unless you have a plan for the mice. right? If you get rid of something big, there's lots of things that, and you gotta make sure, and we tried to do, that's my point, but you're not gonna catch them all. This committee or myself are not gonna build, some of that, we're just gonna have to, it'll have to be tweaked, because there's just too many things that we don't know, especially with a hybrid that we've never ran. I would also encourage this. If the current model, because it's not up there, but maybe there's some things to the current model that you think might address those things too. You know, and I'm not, you want, I mean, I'll just kind of leave that at that. If you reach out to me, I can tell you, you know, finals days or with structural minutes, we could, within the current model, could we address some of these without doing all that? And again, just something else to think about. I don't have it in the packet, but I also have a 6-period semester. If you're wondering why 6-period trimester, why not? I do have that for you that can get you if you are so inclined. And then finally, one question, I think I said this to you last time, people always say, well, Ryan, how do other districts do it? You know, when we go, oh, our clientele is really hard and kids don't do homework, well, everybody's battling the same thing. And I'm like, well, that's not a great answer, you know, and there's only 2 schools that do trimester, and we go, we have harder problems. Well, that doesn't delve into that. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know. That's not a great answer. And I kept telling people I can't answer that. But here's one thing I want you to also consider, and this really came to light. I finally got that question answered. And it was by a bill that the state sent through on the CTA. What they had done had us diving into credit hours and schools that we bring to Hutch High and how we work with HCC and how what we offer, the resources, how we get them. And I found out that we are the only school in the state of Kansas that operates at that scale on those kind of classes, which is a feather in our cap. I mean, they said the next closest would be like Wichita Tech maybe, but nobody has what we do with all these schools. I mean, we take high school kids and put them on our campus. Most people that do this take high school kids and take them to the college campus, which makes that shared staff different. And when they first told me we're different, we can't be different from the state of Kansas. We're not, but we really are in a good way. So that's one thing to consider when they say, how come Hutch High, why can't we do it? Everybody, well, that's one thing we are absolutely unique in that those programs we offer and what we have. The second thing I want you to remember is we're also one of 8 IB schools. That makes us also unique. And of those 8, I don't know the number, but not every single one of them does a career pathway through IB. We do both. Traditional full IB, and we do the career pathway that at graduation, when those we had people stand for that. So I think when I look at our uniqueness, instead of saying, well, our clientele, so, you know, can be hard and we have challenges, everybody has challenges. I think really our uniqueness when we look at scheduling really comes to some really good things we're offering. We're trying to do a lot of certifications for people that want to approach life and their career differently. We want to offer kids the high end of IB. And we're trying to really kind of do it all in the best way that we can. And bless you, I appreciate you saying that about the scores. Those things take time. So I just wanted to end it with that and just say that there is a reason why Hutch High kind of needs a schedule that fits those things that nobody else or very few do, but nobody does both those to that level. So anyway, questions for me?
I just had one, when we had the little meeting with the kids that came, I kind of felt like the kids were like a trimester. And one of the points that they made was, it gave them time to do their homework too, in those smaller classes. But it did seem like all the kids were all 4 trimesters. I'd like to have heard somebody that wasn't for a trimester. I'm sure we have some students that are like that, but I'd like to have heard that side of the kids. And then, well, I think it was that the kids pointed out that the longer classes gave them time to do their homework. They didn't have to take stuff home or not have it done the next day. That's kind of good. for the application, but they did sound like they were all for the trimester. I just wondered, if, you know, what percentage of the student body is trimester or semester? Like I said, they probably don't want to change, because,
It's over 80%
okay,
far in.
they want to stay with the trimester 80%.
And we did that 2 years ago. And it was about the same, which,
Part of it is they don't know anything different. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was saying,
We do
we
have
got
a
one
few
side of you
students
all for
that-
pride, I'd like to have heard.
Might transfer in and maybe know what a semester looks like, but most of our students wouldn't
Don't know
wouldn't
what
know
it
any
is.
different.
Yeah, it was interesting meeting with those kids. First of all, thank you so much for the binder of information. This is wonderful.
call me if you're wondering what, yeah, I mean, I'm here all summer, or email me. But again, I'm sorry it took so long. I do appreciate your time. The committee has done a lot of work, and I just want to we want to give you the best information to make it good, very impactful.
I had a quick question. So do these all or none or some support IB as part of
They
the
all
program?
meet, the minutes.
And then also the CTA, like that all is in.
Great question.
We get to hold on to this stuff. I know I'm gonna have questions, so I'll know right now.
Yeah, it's all yours.
Okay.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, I appreciate it very much.
Sorry. I'm curious about the pacing adjustments. And if there's a difference in content covered for any schedule.
The few that it really would affect would be, a lot of it would be elective classes.
Mhm.
For instance, art might be affected because right now it's 12, they might try to have to fit art in 9, some of that content. The core areas would not. The CTA would not, it would just be the number of classes that they would have to take would limit what, like the 7 period. They would have, a lot of that would take, if it's only 54 minutes, that's gonna fill a good portion of their day. But the content itself, we would have to, that's where that pacing is gonna come in. We'd have to look at, okay, been teaching this class for 12 weeks. What would it, could we do it in 9? Would it be better to move it to 18 and do it in a whole semester?
I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, and it would
Like-
take,
If does one of these allow the opportunity to cover more or cover more in depth?
I would probably say, if I had to, the last one, that 5 semester quarter, because you would be doing all the core, it actually gives you, I mean, if 3 more weeks than what we currently have. So I told you all core would be 3/4 out of the 4, the 5, I'm talking about the hybrid. So they would have English, for 9 weeks, 9 weeks, 9 weeks, 27. Right now they take 12, 24, because it's 12, 12. So yes, in that model, they would get 3 more weeks
Right.
of instruction.
And I can see Lisa right behind you, like, she's so excited. We would have to really work through the curriculum mapping in all areas to ensure that, one, we do want to make sure that students that are in each 9A, B, C, D, or 9A, B, C are receiving the same thing. So instructional minutes would go up in some of those models, and we could definitely compare those for you and show what our current instructional minutes are, or if there was a change, what they could look like either way, so that you can see what it looks like in each area. That would help us know too exactly what mapping would look like. But he's right, we just finished the new mapping for math for the current model.
The new textbook.
The new textbook, so we worked for multiple days, I want to say 3 days at high school to make sure that we have a model in place for this upcoming year. That would then have to shift, same with science and everything else as we move into the new year.
And to be honest, we just didn't take each class and look where, we do know that probably electives would affect, because our core, we're gonna fit that in there however many, quarters or semesters or tries. Yeah, but yeah, that gets you the most, time. that fifth 5-period semester.
And also, increases the amount of electives that you can try, correct?
The 5 periods.
By
semester.
13.
Yeah, which I'm curious if that's a priority.
Well, according to the students, they were worried about losing access to trying the different electives, so.
Yeah.
Is it more important, like, the amount of time you spend in it or the opportunities to try
Right.
different things that might be something you didn't even think of
Right.
as a career?
And I'm glad you guys are having that discussion because it's that age-old question, the chicken or the egg, is it, some people say, we gotta teach them to read before they can do anything. I agree. But then some people say, well, if you can't get them to school to read because they're not interested, there's no classes that,
Right.
that gets them there. I agree.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do there's a little bit of both, but obviously they have to read. I can't, but we do have to still have enough things that bring them to school because, that is one thing that, especially kids in the high school age, if they find no relevance,
And enriching their lives because the electives are their arts.
like, how will I use this later?
Right. Yeah, that was one thing the kids really touched on was how in-depth the amount of time they had really lends itself to going in-depth with their teacher. They were worried about switching to a 45-minute schedule with semesters, not having enough time to really discuss, that was a real big.
Yeah, a
concern
lot of
there.
them talked about, they felt like they had really good opportunities for deep thinking, deep conversation, critical thinking. So, yeah.
I have a question about this modified, oh, wait, am I looking for it? When the modified May semester is the hybrid in this, right? Okay. So 4 of the days would be that 75-minute, but then on Wednesday, they're more like 45. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
That's it on that model, which is not what we ended up. That morphed a little bit. Yeah, sorry.
So
Yeah,
this one is not
yeah, if
that.
you flip over to the other.
Oh, I see. It's on the back. Okay, great.
Again, sorry, I just was trying to be transparent about what we showed and how we got so that, right,
Yeah,
sorry, I
thank
did
you.
not bridge. I did not bridge that for you very well.
Okay, thank you.
But that was one thing that some people were doing with, they would meet in one day with everybody on a shorter period or.
Okay.
With this 5-period semester, it says it aligns better with the HCC classes. So what are we seeing now with the trimester aligning with the HCC classes? Is it part of the kids'
Well,
schedule? or-
Well, some of the students did talk about that. They have to take the test after they've
Yes.
done that class. They have to go
Yeah.
back and do the
Like-
testing,
Like they would finish in December, but then in
Yes.
March when finals
Yeah,
are,
go back and
then they
take, so
take
that
the
was
test.
the alignment with all.
That's
IB.
one, right, that's one of the things is we have to record during their grading period. And here, as they are trying to refine their process, we've always had this where you might enroll for a HCC class that starts in January. And so we can't start you in November.
Right.
Because you wouldn't be in February. So there are some kids wait for some classes. So there's, in any semester model, that takes that out.
Yeah.
That whole, what am I doing, waiting, and puts us on the same grading scale. One thing I did not address, eligibility. Eligibility is kind of tricky because in a semester, really, so let me just back up. Trimester, here's what we do. At 6 weeks, we have a midterm grade. A big part of the midterm is the athletic directors calling people and saying, you better get stuff fixed or you're gonna be ineligible. The nice thing about our current model is it runs a whole sport, like a whole season. Like you will not be ineligible till all the fall sports are done. If you were eligible for winter, as you start in November, you're gonna get to February. Which could be good and bad. I mean, what's the motivation? And then same thing with the spring. In that regard, it's really nice, and they can get eligible quicker. They got 3 times to get eligible. With any of the semester models, the 9 weeks is like the midterm. But they would be eligible for that whole first, they do it twice with Cation. They do it for the fall, they do it for the spring. Fewer times to get eligible, which also means you might be eligible for the beginning of a winter sport and then not. But that's, again, what everybody does. But that is the reality of the trimester too, is, you know, it's one thing, it does get kids eligible quicker.
The trimester.
Questions?
Not right now.
I think there's multiple opportunities for us to.
Yeah.
Have more in-depth conversations. I think that's some of these things already planned for us to sit down in smaller groups and maybe we can do individual.
All right, thanks. Have a good summer.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we moved the school bond discussion up, and I think Mrs. Dr. Brown is here to answer all of our.
Good evening, board. I was Dr. Fran, Director of Finance, and yes, we're going from one meaty, discussion and information to consider to another. So, some of your guys' conversation in the past few, meetings has been, you know, tasked to look at what capital outlay and the bond could look like and what, the capital outlay funds, take up. I'm really proposing, these numbers I'm proposing to you tonight are real numbers and the projects that we got from, our principals and going through walkthroughs with our maintenance department, looking at our, longstanding maintenance, scheduling. So this was a lot of data that was put together, and really something that Dr. Johnson and I have been talking about for a while, just how do we get all of our things that we need to upkeep this large of a district with this many moving pieces into a holistic plan. So yes, they're real numbers, but I'll also tell you, don't get hung up on the numbers too. What I'm wanting to present to you tonight is really a strategy. It's a different strategy than what you probably considered before with some concurrent funding sources. So again, we looked at the survey that people, the bond survey that we got back, took that into consideration too, of like, what would people support? How much would they support? And put all of it together to present just a different strategy for how to tackle some of these ongoing projects for a district our size. Okay, so again, going back to the survey, we went back and said, what do people would want to see in a bond? What it makes you know, the most sense for a district our size, as well as maintaining and making progress towards strategic projects and maintaining our facilities. So at the forefront of our strategy, you know, we're putting safety, children and learning environments, as you know, and we all know, learning looks different than what it did when, you know, you and I were in school. And so how do we continue to adapt our physical environment to what the environment is that our the teachers and students and learning environments need, and making sure that those are quality, as well as combining funding strategies for a smart, right? Looking at our different funding streams that we have, our opportunities, or then kind of marrying those plans together to have a holistic strategy. So, as you all know, because you've talked for a long time about bonds and such, and capital outlay and mills and all the fun things that people like to talk about in their free time, is that you have bond and interest funding, which we currently have a bond that's going to sunset in the next few years, and then we have capital outlay funding. So what this project is predicated on is we worked with our bonding council and said, okay, approximately 10.9 bond and interest mills over 10 years would be approximately how many bonds, right? And that would come out to about a $36 million bond. But when you take out some of those professional services out of it, then we need architects and engineers and all of those things that make sure that everything is to code. And there's just some of those costs you forget about. We have taken those out of it, so it's approximately $6 million for that size. And so that's why I'm presenting to you about $30 million of projects. This would have to be, of course, voter approved. It prioritizes storm shelters, roof safety, a lot of restrooms, HVAC, food service upgrades, interior renovations, and some playground. Then I go to the capital outlay side of it, and it's pretty similar, right, with approximately $30 million. That is over 10 years. Thing I will also remind you of when you deal with capital outlay funds versus bond and interest funds. Bond and interest is you get it, you have a project list, and you go, right? You're borrowing, you're bonding that money. And then you can spend those on those projects, you know, and front load the projects in that time frame. Where capital outlay, it's over that 10 years where you have to plan a little bit more. You're going to receive a certain amount of mills, but then you might have to hold some of them back in order for future projects. We'll go into that more. I just want to remind you that the funding mechanisms are different on when you receive the funds and when you can actually utilize those funds. So the district sets that budget. So the capital outlay, like you have district budget authority, just like you always have. And that is standard on how we do the funding for public education. So in that it's HVAC, roof, restrooms, athletic venue upgrades, specifically at Don Michael, playgrounds for the other ones that weren't in the other in bond, and some, again, interior work. So we'll go into some of these projects. Dr. Johnson and I looked at a lot of these projects, and again, married a lot of that information together to go, what does the public want for bonds? What's the feedback we're getting? But just know that, you know, if you don't, you know, throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, I really don't like this one project part of it, look at the whole, and then you might be able to just, again, conceptualize if this is something you want to consider for a future bond. This is just by category. I'll break it down further. Along the bottom is by millions over time frame. The bottom completely blue line, I just want to highlight, that is for the 3 elementary schools that don't currently have gyms, storm shelters, that then can also help so that you're not having gym and lunch in the same place. So it helps a lot with you know, I know Crystal can talk more to it than I can, but it helps a lot in scheduling and making sure that then students get it in. And it's huge for that, as well as the storm shelter piece of it. So those specifically are to bring up the 3 elementary schools that we don't currently have that opportunity at. We don't have that gym, but it's not just about having a gym. It's really about how do we conduct the day. How do we make sure that students can, you know, be in the classroom more, not have to flip, you know, cafeteria more? So that's what those are specifically. Yes.
Sorry, but we cannot use capital outlay for that.
You
Correct.
can,
We can.
each one, I mean, if there's 3 projects in there and it's 12, each one's approximately $4 million, it would eat up your capital outlay very quickly, but you can. All of these are actually eligible to be used in capital outlay. It's just how do you slice and dice it, right?
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so to break out some of those a little bit further, you have the, like an HVAC plan, right? We have, just again, conceptually, you have, Graver and Lincoln, cameras that could be in that. And then you have, I'm gonna say all the green is all the other ones. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight this in this way is this is what happens when you do it with bonds. Because the year 2033 through 2036, primarily you have a blip in there of 2030 and 31. Those are loaded because that was in the 2006 bond. So that's what happens when you get into this cycle of, you know, you take care of HVAC and roofs and all of the bond. Well, at some point that comes up, right? Now, again, I'm proposing that you could put this in capital outlay. You just have to plan to make sure that you can afford it. Kind of to your point, Lindsay, is that it takes a little bit more money to do it. You can, but you also have to plan forward a little bit to do it. Roof, this is again, just to give you an idea of the overall replacement cost and what we put into a plan. I mean, it's approximately $11 million overall. Hits a lot of different schools. And this is how, I mean, the funds turned out. Again, you can slice and dice this in a lot of different ways. Okay, so getting into more specifics of the projects. Again, it goes back to that 29,800,000. And again, that is based off of you have a $36 million 10-year bond, but then you would only have about $30 million of projects in that because of the other costs. So again, we have the Allen Graver Wiley, Storm Shelter Gym, STEM Band Edition. Each one of those, approximately 4 million. They shift a little bit just based on their needs and size. You have those roof replacement totals in there, HVAC like we talked about, and then we have some safety and security things that our schools are requesting and needing, like secured entrances at 7 and 8, making sure that when someone walks in our door, we buzz them in, that you can't kind of see around that corner, and it would be really nice to be able to have a secure entrance so our people feel safe in the office as well as the safety of our building and the people as well. And then we have some additional upgrades from Career Tech Ed. Hutch High being a campus style just provides a different set of things that we need for those campuses. Restroom and ADA, you will see this on this one as well as the other. One of the, I would say, main things when I was doing my walkthroughs with Keith as well is that our restrooms are just seasoned. They are not up to, the ADA. Once you do some renovations, you have to bring it up to ADA compliance, as you should. And it just takes significant infrastructure and upgrades and time and investment to do that. And so we really looked at a holistic approach to our restrooms throughout the entire district. Many of the restrooms would be covered under this plan. Food service upgrades. Again, just as our food service has evolved, the space allotted that when these buildings were built is just different than what our needs are now. And so making sure we're continuing to adapt to that and to be able to serve our students. Interior renovations, that 2.7 probably sounds like a lot, but $1 million of that is to make sure that our Lincoln school, that is a pre-K center, has what it needs and has the upgrades it needs in order to serve that population of students, as well as a lot of breakout spaces. Again, going back to how we learn in the spaces and physical environment we need are just different than when these buildings were built. So how do we continue to adapt that? And it hits a lot of different projects. And then the playground at Link McCandless is the kind of it's in the most need. So that's why it hits in the bond, but the other ones are also hit, but it might take over time, right? Because we're talking about immediacy versus being able to plan it out for a time period. That's what the need is for right now. When you go into capital outlay projects, again, we talked about the HVAC. It's a very large need. And when you look at those first 3 years, when it says general maintenance and replacement, we spend a lot of money on general maintenance and replacement for how many HVAC units we have. And I'll tell you too, that means, we had a 40-ton unit that went out this last year that was approximately $100,000. Then you have to pay for the crane to put in, you have to pay for the labor, you have to pay for all of that. We have to make sure we have money in order to set some of that aside and do the nature of business that we have and make sure that we can take care of those emergency needs. So we also have general repair and things that go on. That would allow us the flexibility to, if we needed to accelerate one of those projects based on what the inventory was telling us, that we would have the opportunity to. The playgrounds I mentioned before, it's the other ones, including Lincoln, just because that wasn't a prior elementary school and the needs of our pre-K population are a little bit different than what we would have for, a 6th grader that used to be that way. Roof replacement, we went over that, as well as safety and security, additional cameras. Believe it or not, we spend about $50,000 to $100,000 on safety and security every single year, just to make sure that we're keeping our things up to date. There's a lot of things that we cover in our annual maintenance. I try to do my best to make sure that we capture that so that it wouldn't be a surprise like, oh, well, yes, and we have to do that. Try to put it all encompassing to what we spend in a normal budget cycle as well. Talked about athletics of Don Michael Complex upgrades, and some locker room facility, particularly at HMS 7 and 8. I'm sure when you do walkthroughs for the bond, you notice that they either weren't in the right place or they were aging, and so how do we get those up to the quality that we're looking for? And going back to interior and other, and parking, tax and art renovations, breakout rooms again, restrooms for food service center. You'll see that with how Dr. Johnson and I, again, determined the need and kind of the time frame of it, that's what kind of accelerated some of these of like, do you need to take care of it, you know, if you were to pass a bond right away, or could it wait for 10 years? That's how we kind of, broke some of these out, but you'll see a lot of redundancy, right? It's not like one project is doing all of one thing and one project's doing another. We have a lot of needs over that time frame. It's just how do we, get those fulfilled? So going back to what went into this, we took all the data that we had, took the feedback, took your guys' feedback, the communities, data that we already have, right? Like how much do we pay for just ongoing maintenance, making sure that wasn't, forgotten. Touching every school, making sure that every student, every facility, not having, you know, the surprises or not forgetting a building, making sure that families, staff benefit. Concurrent investment, you can just see that there's a lot of redundancy in both, but again, the timing of those are very different. But when you put it in a concerted plan, it can, I mean, that's $60 million investment over 10 years. That's definitely not insignificant by any means, and I think you can get a lot accomplished in that. And, you know, just full transparency and talking through those projects and putting in a holistic plan and making sure that, we're continuing to communicate the success of what we're doing. We do a lot of things behind the scenes, and, sometimes we might just need to say, no, this is a community benefit. We're taking care, we're being good stewards of those facilities, and here's how we're doing it. And here's how the community, benefits from it. So I know that was a lot. I also know that you guys are not, you guys have looked at a lot of bond stuff and gone on a lot of, tours and listened to a lot of people. I was here to provide another update as well as make sure that you understood what our capital outlay potentially could do in that same 10 years. But I'm also here to, what questions do you have? What information can we continue to provide you as you look at these options? And you continue to discuss further. If there's anything that myself or Dr. Johnson or any questions now, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we were
This
talking.
is great, yeah, thank you.
So- I appreciate the response and the information.
I was just gonna say, one of the main things from the survey that we gleaned was safety and security was a big deal. But it doesn't look like they match up. Could we not? Maybe I'm misreading this, but the controlled entry specifically, like, is that not included in the capital outlay? Does it say it? So could we could still do that?
Right, again,
Yeah.
we have a lot of flexibility within this. If there is some project that rises to the top, or if there is some project that doesn't. But yeah, the controlled entry were in the, safety and security under bond projects, but again, that would be a lot for, you know, this group and staff to look through and really dive into, you know, is there anything that we don't like from this one plan that we'd like to do a different plan? There's a lot of ways. Again, the whole 60 million could be covered under capital outlay if you could fund it, but can't, at one time in that time frame. So, but all of them are eligible for that expense. So there's a lot of movement you could or could not do, but the cap of how much you could spend in that time frame is very close to 40.
The one understanding was put that on the bond, so we get that cash, we'd be ready to go.
Yeah.
If that's the safety and security issue you want to tackle first.
Right.
She's got some safety and security in the capital outlay. And it could all be the capital outlay, just take it. Yeah, good say,
Mhm.
but take us long.
The bond timeline to pay off the bonds, how,
Maybe a 10 years, a 10-year term.
okay, so they're both in here.
This would keep the mill.
Yeah.
But
So this is with what we had our bond, council do is price out the 10.948 approximately bond, on interest mills. What that does is, to prepare for the bond potential of the last vote we had, we had moved about 4 mills from capital outlay to bond and interest going, hey, if we get this bond, then that'll be ready to go. We won't need as much in bond and interest because the projects like the HVAC roofs, security, those things are in the bond. And so it's really as a preparation status to do that. And what this does virtually is shift that forward back to capital outlay. But you have the you do have in the statutory ability to go up to 8 in that bond or the capital outlay. But this is really to shift that forward.
But this is not saying.
I'm saying that's what you have the authority to do, but this, with that 30 million is, closer to shifting that forward.
So the capital outlay is, you're allocating a portion, when we can capital outlay monies, or is that all of it?
I am factoring in a very large piece of it because what we, put towards capital outlay right now is safety and security, roofs, HVAC units. There are a lot of things that were, to come up with this, I had to take the projects from Schaefer that they costed out with all the information that we got and marry it up to what we already expense out of capital outlay on a normal basis. And so really this takes a very large chunk of the capital outlay expense.
Is it fair, the capital outlay fund, construction costs just skyrocketed, so we're not really keeping up. That's part of the challenge, is we can't possibly generate enough capital outlay alone, get these things done at the time we need.
So, I mean, this is, again, I'm your finance person, so I'm not gonna push that envelope, too hard, but I mean, I feel confident that we can get $30 million done in that 10 years, on capital outlay, but that's, pushing it further than some, right? But yeah, you couldn't do all 60 in that time frame without it, not even close.
But a bond like that on people's on their property taxes. So next year, they're gonna have a reduction from the old bond.
From 14, approximately 15 to approximately 11, yes,
It'll go down that many mils.
yes.
And so then
That's
if we're
what,
adding a 10 mil, it'll just be, no.
it's not an
that's
addition,
not-
that's keeping that's if you were to shift that from what this year's budget did to the prior year's budget, that shifted. And then this actually keeps that mill steady at what the budget was in 24-25 school year.
Which was,
10.948.
okay.
Would be reducing. Would be.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it'd be shifting actually. So if you're looking at your current mills, which are 52.424. And your bond interest is currently at, again, I'm gonna use approximations of about 15, your capital outlay is 1.6. Then you would shift that 4 mills from bond interest to capital outlay to 5.6 of capital outlay and to your 10.948. Now, again, those numbers are approximate because even the budget that I send to the state is based off of what the county thinks the assessed valuations are gonna be.
Yeah.
So like ours adjusted by 6,000 in the end, but I just don't want you to say, hey, this came in different and why did it do that? It's because we have to, they're working on approximations too.
I'm gonna rephrase this question because that was a lot of numbers. And I think I got most of it, but let me rephrase it this way. My house is $100,000 in value. If we propose this bond, how much will my taxes go up? Is basically my question.
No,
As a,
depends on your assessed valuation, but based on our mills, we anticipate the mills to be generally the same. I'm gonna say within.
hey, that's what I was trying to ask our taxpayers is.
Right, because you're shifting where the mills are going, but you're not increasing, again,
There's not more coming out of
Virtually.
the taxpayer pocket.
right.
Okay.
Because 4 is going to capital outlay, 4 becoming off bond and interest. I'm always gonna put the caveats of like, LOB does weird things every year, and so it goes up by about 0.5. But in essence, it would be neutral to this current budget.
Smaller principal amount, smaller period of time, less interest over time. I mean,
Yeah.
as compared to the last one that was attempted,
Correct.
far smaller scale.
Far smaller, scale as well as scope of work within it. Saying this is towards, how do we make sure that we have all of our buildings being maintained? We have a lot of buildings, and we all know that. We need to make sure that they're maintained and not, get in bad shape, as well as what I feel like a concurrent funding stream would allow you to do is some of those things that modernize our facilities, right? And some of those, not just keeping the wheels on the bus necessarily, but making sure that it's enhanced with what the needs of our students and staff are today. That's what it allows you to do, because again, if a bond were to either not be chosen to go or would not pass, we are absolutely gonna do everything we can to maintain our buildings, but those other nice to haves, like the playgrounds, the, renovations, the additional storm shelters in the elementary schools, the, interior renovations in order to make our, interiors what the students and staff need. Those have become nice to haves, and we would likely not be able to do them given the scope in that time frame. So I know, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm sure if you do later, if you think of other information that would be helpful when you go into, this decision, please let Dr. Johnson know, and she will let me know. But otherwise I'll let you, sit with it. for a while.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. These are the comments we. It's good stuff. Okay. We'll move on to item 5A, the minutes of the 5/11 board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Election.
Second.
Christie, all in favor? This is 7-0. We'll move right into superintendent consent. Items A through E. Any questions or anything about any of those? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Cheryl. In favor, passes 7-0. Okay. Boy, we got some action.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Mr. B. He's finally,
Yeah.
finally up. He didn't fall asleep once.
Patient.
This,
Yeah.
workers' compensation. So, yeah, Allen fee for reference on the 308 product, my wife's 308 product, brothers, sisters, kids, nieces, nephews, and my granddaughters. They'll became fourth generation. So heavily invested in this district and appreciate what y'all do, 100%. So this is really brief. I think you have the information in your packet. I met with Abby, Julie, Crystal on May 19th. We did a pretty thorough in-depth review of what's going on with the work comp, and really indicated you guys need to celebrate, because y'all are doing a great job with workers' compensation. There's two things that drive workers' compensation. I tell everybody, want to control workers' compensation costs, you got to control losses. Okay, so it's driven by payroll and losses. And you're doing a great job with your claims management, all your team is really. And so when we kind of reviewed that, I'm like, God, you need to celebrate this. This is great. The trends are great. And public education, workers' compensation is a very difficult risk, as you all know. There's lots of challenges, and there's just lots of ways for people to get injured. And so you're doing a great job. And so that's why I said we ought to celebrate this. Long story short, 3 points. Take any questions, then I'll move on down the road. Your premium's going up $7,700 this year. Had your payrolls been the same as we projected last year versus what we projected this year, you'd be down about $30,000. So I've got a 7-year look back in your packet that I thought was really impactful when we were reviewing this with the team. That back in 21-22, with total payrolls of $39 million. And you have two different classes, and one of those classes, the more expensive class, increased quite a bit this year. But anyway, in 21-22, you had $39 million in payrolls and some change. The premium was $332,000. This year, for this next projected year, we're projecting payrolls of $45 million and your premiums are at $252. So basically an $80,000 decrease from where you were in 21 and 22. And really consistent numbers, rates really are all down, modification factors down. What really got really kind of weird in the workers' compensation world was during COVID when everybody went home. And so hard to get injured at home on Zoom. But when they came back, then there was a spike. So there was kind of that, and we saw that with all industries and all across the board. But really, I think it's just bottom line, your 7-year look back, and payrolls are up 17% since 21-22. Premiums are down 24% since that time. So that's a credit to your team, to the good work they're doing here. And I just said, you all need to celebrate that. So every dollar matters, I know, as we've been hearing about, you hear about it all the time. So in this case here, awesome work. Any questions, any clarity, happy to give you that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Told Abby it'd be less than 5 minutes, was that right?
All right, no questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve workers' comp renewal.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Yes, 7-0. All right. We're knocking them out now. When you're up. This is exciting stuff.
Good evening, Clint Nelson, Interfaith Housing Services, a CEO, also Touch High Class of '98. Here tonight to just discuss briefly an MOU between, or proposed MOU between Interfaith and 308. Little background, we were called upon by 308 staff, including Dr. Johnson, to evaluate this property just to the north of what I still call Allen. Generally due to our experience with some of the older housing stock in the community and taking a look at it, if it was a viable project for us to actually pick up and relocate the house. We've moved a number of properties over the years. And based on our inspection or exterior and the age of the property and some of the research, we do think it would be a candidate to remove that property, clear that lot for redevelopment and to serve the needs of the school there. And so along with that conversation and evaluation, we also let staff know that we do have some funds set back for just this type of work when we deem a property be not repairable or not worthy of trying to salvage. We can't take care of the demolition and clear the site for redevelopment. We've done a number of those over the last few years. So we would love to continue to strengthen the partnership or relationship with 308. Would be happy to enter into an MOU and play the general contractor role to get that property cleared. Pretty basic, if you read through it. I know 308's already secured deed in the property, and next step after executing this would be for us to pull permits and bills and take care of that piece of the project.
Do they have any questions?
I feel like I made that very easy.
That's
If I could, while I'm standing here,
Yeah,
I also
please.
wanted to highlight just our growing relationship with CTA, EA, and both Travis and Dave over at HCC. We've had a great experience working kind of alongside them on the HUD frame grant this season, and worked to register our first apprentice program, Interfaith Construction Permits program. We've got 3 young men that we hired that are finishing the new build. Once that's done, we told them we're gonna get some real experience. We're gonna put them in a fire damage property. A lot of the work we do is, you know, it's renovation, so, some new exposure for the students and expanding those skills and experiences. We do, plan to continue to hire, apprentices every year. And hopefully feed that labor pipeline for construction. But just a great group of students, and it's been great getting to, build that partnership this year.
Great, we appreciate that.
Happy to hear that.
Housing is so important that we need all, everybody working towards it.
The only question I have is the cost to remove the property, is that discussed later, or it's not in here, right?
No, and we're actually going to handle that. We have some funding set aside,
Or you can take it?
for Black Widow, yeah.
Oh.
What is the BCS?
Sure, don't sign the other days.
You know, we've actually, spent most of this year, pursuing some properties that were, blighted or were, kind of a downgrade to neighborhood value. I thought we can support this, and it's had some questionable activities and, but it's really hard to secure, need to the property, especially some of the abandoned houses and some new. So we're working some different solutions, but, definitely have some funding to handle that.
Could we interest you into a old YMCA building?
Yeah. So, go, we're good. Yeah, that's, we're happy to partner.
Appreciate it, thanks.
That's great.
I would make a motion to approve the MOU between USD 308 and Innovative Housing.
I'll second.
Thank you, Darcy and Sherman. All in favor? 7-0.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. All right. Let's take. That's right. I think you should be required to bring us snacks so that you can.
Looking at your snack, here's what I have for you. Good evening, Jennifer Paper, Director of Nutrition Services, here to talk about meal prices for next school year. What we are passing around is just a spreadsheet that, it's actually in board docs, but I thought when we got to it, it's just easier to have it right in front of your face when we talk about it. So that way if you have any questions, I can help answer them. So, last year, just a reminder, we did not raise meal prices last year, so I'm just coming tonight to talk about meal prices, what my recommendation is for next year. But before we get started with that, I just kind of wanted to get a recap of, because it's been a long time since I talked about how nutrition services is funded and how much money we receive in funding from the federal government to do a program. So we operate for K-12, we operate the National School Lunch and National School Breakfast program for all of our K-12 students. This is a federally funded program, and so as long as we follow all the federally funded regulations that they have set in place for us, then they reimburse us for meals then served to students. I say served to students because if we say, for example, prepare 200 meals and only 100 students go through the line, we only get reimbursed for that 100 students that actually go through the line. And then how much we receive in reimbursement varies based on whether the student is free, reduced, or paid. We receive a little bit different amount, and we'll go into that in the next slide. Families can qualify for free or reduced price meals by either filling out that free or reduced price meal application, or we have some families that just automatically directly qualify. Generally, that means that they are on some additional assistance at home, whether that be food assistance, TAF, maybe they're a ward of the court, so homeless, foster child, homeless, certain Medicaids also qualify. So those students don't have to fill out that free and reduced meal application, they automatically qualify. And then you, as the Board of Education, you set the paid meal rate for our students, as well as what the adult meal prices are. So that's your role in this. Reduced meal prices are generally set by the federal government. They just put a cap on it. We can't charge more than 30 cents for breakfast and 40 cents for lunch. So that's why our rates are always for reduced price, 30 cents for breakfast and 40 cents for lunch. And then we don't receive any additional funding for any of our adult meals that we serve. So the amount that we charge for adults is the only amount that we receive for adult meals. And then I just wanted to kind of just share what the district demographics are with regards to free and reduced meals. This is based on our September 20th count of this last year. So 71.62% of our students qualify for free and reduced, and then 28.3%, so 28.4 roughly qualify for paid. Okay, so how do we get paid? So like I said before, it's based on the amount that we receive from the federal government. It's based on whether they qualify for free, reduced, or paid. You'll see here for breakfast, the free rate this past year was $2.94 in federal reimbursement. So as the kids are going through the line, if that child qualified for free meals, we would receive that $2.94 for that child. Reduced, you'll see we get $2.64 from the federal government. And if you add that with what the parents / students pay of 30 cents, we receive the exact same amount. So you'll see on this screen that for our free students and our reduced students, the amount of money we receive is exactly the same because they're just paying the difference of what free is minus the 30 cents that our parents pay, or the 40 cents minus for lunch. Moving on to paid. So paid, we receive 40 cents for the government for our paid students. And then that $1.80, that's what the board sets is how much we are going to charge our paid families. So in the past, we set that at $1.80. So if you take the $1.80 plus the 40 cents, then that's what we receive for every paid student that is going through the line and getting a reimbursable breakfast. We receive $2.20 for those students. Moving on to lunch, very similar format. So for free and reduced, we receive basically $5.03 for lunch. Paid, we break down here in our district, and most districts do. On the paid rate, we receive $87 from the federal government. And then I have it broken down here because our elementary charge, our elementary, middle, and high school, 3 different rates. So at the elementary level, we get the 87 cents from the federal government, and then we get $2.75 from what the parents pay to equal the 362. Middle school, we get 377, and then high school, 397. So I just kind of wanted to share with you, based on what the student qualifies for, how much funding will we receive. And like I said, the student payment portion that you have on the screen, that is what you as a board are able to set. Okay, so moving on, you can refer to the sheet that I just passed out, but I just, here in yellow, you will see these are what we are currently charging our paid families. So Hutchinson is in yellow here, and I have that we charge $275 for elementary, $290 for middle school, and then $310 for high school. And then I just went, these are all rates from last year. So we just went to other area schools and that were either similar demographics, similar size, or just around us in general, and pulled the information that they had for what they have been charged, what they're currently charging their families for the paid rate. And then you will see in, I believe it's kind of showing up in yellow / green, but on your what I printed off, it should be showing up probably in blue. That is what the average price is for the districts that we have listed. So as you can see, we are like one of the lowest paid rate. We have one of the lowest paid rates of any of the area schools or some other size districts, even in comparison to the average. We serve about 100,000 paid lunches per year, so that makes our math pretty easy with regards to figuring out if we were to increase our rates, how much money that would generate or what that would do to our budget. So for example, if we increase it by 10 cents, that would generate about 10,000, increase it by 15,000. Right next to that, I put what the history of our meal price increases were, just so you can kind of see in the past what we have done with regards to meal price increase. And then right next to that, I have what the history of the district's free and reduced percentages are, just starting from school year 1920 moving forward. So you can see that data. My recommendation, with regards to meal prices for lunch is for students, I'm going to recommend a 20-cent increase for students and a 25-cent increase for adults. As you can see, even with that, even when we add in that 20-cent increase for students, our rates are still going to be one of the lowest in the district, other districts around us. And the other thing too, reason why I kind of picked 20 cents is that it's just a little bit smaller of an increase for a family semester, but yet it also helps bridge that gap. Because as you saw in our previous slide, the gap of what we receive for free and reduced price students versus what we're receiving for our paid families is pretty significant. The amount of money that we're receiving is quite different. So that kind of then hopefully will avoid us having to come back and say, hey, we need to increase by 50 cents or 75 cents to make up that gap. As you know, you go to the grocery store, food and labor costs are just increasing left and right. We have increased 7% year to date, so that's roughly about 109,000 is what we have increased in food costs alone, not considering any of the labor costs. So,
Is there a requirement that we have to, that gap can't get too big?
there used to be, and there it still is, but every year the federal government says as long as you maintain a positive meal balance, or a positive overall balance, then you do not have to raise it by as much as, you don't have to raise it by a certain amount. But there used to be stipulations that said that you had to. Now, who knows, next year they might come and say, don't care that you have a positive balance, we want you to raise it, so that way you are receiving the same amount of funding for your paid students that we are giving you for the free. Next slide, I just wanted to talk about breakfast. So this is a very similar slide to what you just saw for lunch. Main things that I just wanted to point out here is that we serve a lot fewer students for breakfast. So in the other slide, we had 100,000 paid lunches that we serve. So we only serve about 19,000 paid breakfast each year. So if you increase the amounts, you're not really going to generate a whole lot of money by increasing those amounts. So my recommendation actually for breakfast is going to be something totally different than what we've done before. My recommendation is that we do not charge any of our students for breakfast. This is one thing that several other school districts have started this model that are very similar demographics to us, and that's going to be Bonner Springs, Hayes, Hayesville, Garden City, and Wichita. They all do not charge their students for breakfast. And what it does is as long as you have a high enough participation, as long as you have a high enough participation, it does not create any type of financial hardship for the district. So because many of these schools, when I talked to a lot of the different schools, many of them saw a 40 to 50% increase in participation. And I'd say we had a very similar model when we had COVID and we were able to give free breakfast for all during COVID. We saw drastic increase in participation during COVID. And so that would be my recommendation. It also aligns really well with what our department's goal is for next year, which is to increase breakfast participation. So I think it would really align well with that. But ultimately, it sets our students up for success. One thing that really stood out to me when I was looking at Wichita's data, particularly at their middle and high school levels, that's where we see a really sharp decrease in participation for breakfast.
their breakfast numbers at, their middle and high school numbers almost rivaled their lunch. Like they were honestly serving more kids for breakfast than they even were for lunch. And all of that is due to just having, equal access for everyone, free breakfast, and it just helps get everyone to breakfast. So it's not really singling out, a certain child. Everyone has the opportunity to get breakfast. And then also having this type of model, it expands different serving models that we can implement, particularly in that middle and high school level. Prior to COVID, we used to do like a grab and go breakfast cart at our middle and high schools where we would set it up in the hallways and kids could grab a breakfast, shelf stable type breakfast, put it in their bag. Maybe they eat it in first period, maybe they eat it later on when they're hungry. So it allows for a little bit more of those flexibility options. Second chance, that's something, a model that other school districts do where they offer a breakfast in between first and second period. Sometimes when our kids come to school, they're not necessarily hungry right when they come because they rolled out of bed 10 minutes before they got there and their hunger cues haven't kicked in, but after first period, they're starting to get hungry. So that's another model that it would allow us the opportunity to explore. So just a summary, recommendations, no charge for K-12 student breakfast, 20-cent increase for our K-12 lunch, and then 25-cent increase in our adult both breakfast and lunch. I would entertain any questions if you have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate all you do. Move to approve the price increases as requested.
Second.
Cheryl, all in favor? 7-0. Safe and secure schools grant.
Yeah, this is actually pretty easy. I think, Abby kind of already shared some of the things that the district might be looking at when it comes to safety and security. We have in the past had the Safe and Secure School Grant to do some of those things. Essentially, what we're asking you to approve tonight is that you understand that whatever we get, we would match. We have applied for around 465,000. That is not normally the amount we get, but if we were to get that, we would be able to take care of some of those things that she mentioned, like secured entrances, cameras, excuse me. The next item, an additional SRO, there are items like that. And so whatever we're awarded, we would match as a district. And then based on what we're awarded, we would prioritize our needs, which we've kind of already done, to decide what we could do through this grant versus capital outlay or federal fund.
That's where the money would come from, either capital outlay or general fund, right, our match.
Yes.
Questions?
We essentially will just submit it once we have more information and we know what's awarded, but as with any grant, it comes to our board first, as part of the process.
Yeah, I move for request to approve up to $465,490 if awarded funds from the KSDE Safe and Secure. It's a long one. That's grams and equipment as presented. All right, everything.
Thanks, Cheryl.
I'll second. Thanks.
All in favor? That's the same.
I think I'm up again with
You're
an SRO.
up again.
Okay, so essentially tonight, I'm asking for you to approve an FTE, which is just an additional full-time SRO. We have successfully partnered with HPD since 21-22. So we had one SRO in 21-22. We added a second SRO in 22-23, and then last year we added a third SRO. We have an opportunity to add a fourth, and for us, that would just be strategic placement. For example, as we talked about, maybe some key adults moving with students at middle school, we would have our SRO move with the assistant principal. So we would essentially have an SRO at each one of our middle schools, as well as 2 at Hutch High. Of course, that would be dependent on HPD hiring somebody, and we work in partnership with them, but for us, it costs on average about $34,000. Should we get the Safe and Secure grant, that is one of our priorities, that we would use that money to pay. Outside of the Safe and Secure grant, Dr. Johnson and I have worked with Abby and feel comfortable with recommending the additional SRO for next school year. If you approve the FTE, then next month with our normal MOUs, you would approve the MOU, which just adds in that additional person as well.
Any questions?
No, I motion to approve 1 additional SRO.
Susan?
Also,
Darcy? All in favor? 7-0. An agreeable motion.
Let's keep going. Okay, the next one is me again. So this is the student personal electronic communication device policy. So this has come down to us, and we have worked with our administration on what it looks like. Essentially, if I wrap it up, we are saying, please do not bring your personal electronic communication device to school. It does include that, and that's not an option that we get to decide what it includes and what it doesn't. The reality is, it's anything that is not school issued. So we give you a computer, we give you an iPad, we give you the things you need, but outside of that, you're not bringing your personal devices. And if you do bring your personal devices, we'll work with parents at enrollment to talk about what does it look like. For example, according to what it says right now, devices need to be inaccessible to students. That might mean they're in a vehicle. That might mean they're left at home. Where we're gonna work on what that could look like. We've worked with our administration to talk about those options, as well as what we will do when students do bring their device to school. One of the things that we are clear about is if a student needs a device based on their IEP or their 504, their individual health plan, that is something that is written into our policy, and we'll make sure that students have what they need in order to take care of any medical or special education needs along with that. The other part of this is the school day. We are recommending to the board that the school day is the start of school to the end of school. It does not include transportation to sporting events or sporting events after school. We believe that that is the best case scenario for us, that the start of school day to the end of school day would be the time that we are asking for personal electronic communication devices to not be accessible.
and just to clarify, we already had a policy. This is solely because House Bill 2299.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure everybody is
Yes,
aware
thank
of
you.
why we are
Yes,
changing the policy. It's not our choice. We have to change the
And the
policy.
biggest change is just from high school.
Yes.
To 8th grade.
That was the rule.
This was good.
yes. And so we will work, just like we did last year when we did policy, we worked really hard to get the communication out. Dr. Johnson has talked about having this as part of an enrollment piece, so parents are aware of why we're doing this. We will have to update our handbooks, which you guys will review handbooks in July. Once this policy is approved, we'll update everybody's handbook so that it references this policy directly versus our previous policy and procedures.
Any questions or comments? Motion to approve.
Only because I want to lead, so I'm going to approve the policy draft.
Thanks, Dan.
I do.
Second.
Thank you, Cheryl. All in favor? Reluctantly passed 7-0.
Only my notes.
All right, the next one is the adult version.
Great. Right, again, this is coming directly from KASB, but this is outlining the way that we want our staff to communicate with students. And this policy is not necessarily going to go into our handbooks, it's really a practice. And we're talking about how we can communicate with our staff at the beginning of the year so that they're aware of what the policy states and then how we can maybe put some things in place to help them be more successful. What this is saying is that employees are encouraged to use what the district provides and what the district oversees to communicate with students. Essentially saying, don't use social media, text messaging platforms that are not district approved to communicate with students. It talks about that when we use maybe an app to communicate with sports teams, that's over, the district can oversee that. So I think we can put some practices in place to do this. And it allows just to keep everybody safe in communication when adults are communicating with students. So again, this is a piece that we will work with our staff at the beginning of the year to inform them of the policy, as well as say, here's what you should be doing instead of texting with students or Facebook messaging.
Questions or comments?
Probably should know this one, but the cell phone policy or the media policy, does that apply to staff, or can they have their phones in the class?
So cell phone, I mean, we want to be good models. I'll tell you, Mr. Avey would, trying to find him right now is really difficult because he's walking around the high school without his cell phone. So when I want to text him or call him, I'm waiting on him because he's being a good role model. I think we will absolutely have to have conversations with our staff about, we are expecting our students to do this. What does this look like? We do not have a policy in place for staff when it comes to use of their cell phone during the school day. This is directly related to staff when it comes to how they communicate with students and social media. Mhm.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Lindsay, all in favor? 7-0. All right. Moving right along to negotiations. We'll make a motion to go into what? Session, discuss potential items for the 26-27 contract discussion pursuant to the exception from employee negotiations under COMA, to include Dr. Young, Dr. Johnson via phone. No, she's not going to. So Dr. Young and David Cunningham and June.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor? This is 7-0. Gonna say how long? 15 minutes because.
Yeah.
I should
Okay.
have to-
Okay.
Been on. Motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under coma. Open meeting will resume in this room at, what time of day is it? We need 20, and we need to. So 8:30, and we need to include Dr. Young, Julie Schrum, David Cunningham, and no. We need second.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome, thank you.
I have motion that. Second.
Oh, it's not. Hey, Ted. Okay. Proud of you. Bad. I was over, how much do you?
You go over the code tonight or something?
But do court in the morning, and run over tomorrow, I'll get her checked out, go to my parents' house. You know, I'll go to
Or
her.
she tells me.
Yeah, so
So we. I could come on today, it was, that we're gonna get them.
Your mics are on, by the way.
Unusual.
We have just a minute, I think, before we're starting.
We have a plan to do that.
Yeah, it's been long today.
Yeah, it's been.
it's disconnected now.
Yeah.
Wait, will that come up or something? Yes.
All right. We'll go ahead and get started. Great.
No, no. Well, we have those time.
It's 8:40.
Oh, oh, I heard her time, good job.
All right, personnel reports. 9A.
I will motion approve the personnel report.
Second.
All in favor? 7-0. All right, board discussion. I have one thing.
Just one.
One thing. There is an opportunity for 5 more people to take advantage of a free, When Everyone Leads, Kansas leadership based, book study, for free leadership training. And the Community Foundation scheduled this during this time in hopes that educators would take advantage of it because it's during this time. So it's a free leadership training. So if you know anyone, encourage them to sign up. They can go to the Community Foundation website to do so. Anybody can do
What are the dates and is it the weekend one or a day?
it. 9 a.m. to 3, June 18th at the Hawk's Nest in Hutchinson.
Nice.
Was that?
Hawks Nest is our, the old, yeah, the old town club.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was one day, June
One day.
18th, which is Thursday.
The deadline to register is June 11th.
Okay.
Hey, we're gonna.
Sounds like it's an opportunity.
It's a great opportunity. Good stuff. So share the word. That's all I have.
Any more comments? I know
Any more comments?
I would move to adjourn.
All in favor, 7-0. Woo!
Hey.
We made it.